missing at least one major market trend. Secondly, there are two more common reactions that still see the temptation of PE. One is to continue to bet on the future market responding to changes with immutability, hoping that capital operation can reverse the decline of the industrial economy, but only maintaining the fate of the enterprise on the PE strategy, with huge risks. Another approach is to use PE fundraising from the perspective of enterprise development strategy, seize the industry's commanding heights, and strive to stabilize and expand the enterprise as much as possible. The two will jointly invest in the high end of PE and VC. The problem with this trend is that it is difficult to achieve sustainable development of projects based on the current composition and constrained system of personnel engaged in PE and VC in China, because even practitioners of PE and VC rarely persist until 7 years. Often, if there are projects with money, they will gather. If the money goes out, they will disperse. And there are many people who do one vote and end it. Under these conditions, uncertainty risk has become the primary risk, besides operational risk, which is also a distinctive feature of China compared to international standards. Since PE is always a kind of financial innovation, with the essence of financial greed, it is embedded with the fast evaporating original sin. The chaotic phenomenon of PE burning money under the concept hype has emerged. Even those who are as skilled as Blackstone will inevitably be mistaken for their wisdom. Originally, when the global era of low interest rates was coming to an
Fannie Mae and American International Group have also issued an 850 billion yuan rescue plan with twists and turns, and strengthened supervision over the only two major investment banks by incorporating them into commercial banks. Does this mean the convergence of financial leverage and judgment is absurd? From the perspective of the disposal method of non-performing assets after major evaporation, it is highly likely that the suit will change without changing the dressing, which is still the Wall Street style of the ultimate goal of 850 billion ESCUE fund operation is TOTTR Act and leverage more private capital and social resources to join in the reconstruction of market order and confidence. This means that the problems caused by the greed of many players on Wall Street will ultimately be solved together by these players. As for the possible changes, whether it is directly controlled by the government, serving as both a judge and an athlete, or investing in private capital investing in non-performing assets, the government's return from the front to the back means that it is difficult for the government to stand on the opposite side of private capital or market players. Mixed operation and joint cooperation may become new features of the next stage of the financial market. From the trend of mixed operation between commercial banks and investment banks, it can be seen that commercial banks have not been spared this time, with the support of investment banks and hedge funds, improperly taking on the risk of excessive homebuyers and the excessive debt of investment banks themselves supported by credit products. The combination of the two may lead to further deterioration of the problem. Therefore, after the dust settles, after a period of repair, commercial banks are likely to repackage and sell their investment banking business, and the investment banking model will obviously not end. However, the transparency and leverage ratio of its derivative trading, including executives, will be strictly required and restricted. In fact, entering the financial civilization, the existence and reproduction of financial innovation and financial derivatives has become an important economic approach, which undoubtedly has a gambling nature, is inherently guilty.
The market for several times to stabilize food prices. Experts predict that the period for domestic grain prices to be relatively independent of international grain prices is only 12 months. So although domestic food prices may appear optimistic, they may actually be the calm before tea storm. At present, filling the gap between domestic and international positions determines the overall trend of rising domestic food prices. But relevant parties are trying to control its inflation. Therefore, under the protection of policies in the short term, the price difference of grain may further expand. In the medium to long term, domestic grain prices may gradually keep up with international grain prices. In the future, the most likely problems in price alignment are not in wheat, rice, but in soybeans, because the first few items are basically self-sufficient domestically and have little correlation with international prices. The dependence on soybean imports is as high as 80%, and the industrial chain is highly monopolized by foreign investment. In fact, domestic soybean prices have basically been in line with international standards, which greatly increases the possibility of international borrowing of soybeans to impact domestic grain prices. Meanwhile, in the future, it is likely that relevant parties will find it increasingly difficult to suppress the rise in food prices, and can only moderately and timely let the market speak. In addition to rationalizing the food price formation system, participating in international agricultural trade for hedging and increasing direct subsidies to farmers and consumers may become the key to the peaceful evolution theory of domestic food prices in the future. Financial market. Following the development path of main business plus investment. In contrast, horizontal transfer is a temporary measure because cost increases have a regional deferred effect, especially in the processing and manufacturing industry, which has a spatial displacement periodicity in its historical process. The investment effect in oblique synthesis is significant, largely shifting the cost pressure mainly focused on industrial operations. However, this type of investment is not stable and fluctuates with the fluctuations of capital market conditions, mainly the stock market and housing market. At the same time, the lack of a coordinated development mechanism between industrial capital and financial capital has also determined that volatility is the norm. In this way, only vertical transformation and upgrading, accelerating the increase of product added value, and increasing the contribution rate of technology and brand are long-term solutions. However, practical difficulties such as high investment, slow returns, and weak patent protection make transformation the least favored among small and medium-sized enterprises. Although transformation and upgrading are difficult, there are also opportunities under the turbulence of industrial adjustment. For example, in the textile industry, there is no doubt at the time of the road, a plastic restriction order was issued, and the industry predicted that the annual demand for reusable shopping bag across the country could reach tens of billions. As the main raw material for the production of reusable shopping bag, non-woven fabrics will enter a stage of rapid development in the next 5 years. Such adoption is enough to PR of that first, under the life and death test of inflection point, the industry may be reborn after reflection and correction. Some companies have fallen here, while others have found new starting points. China's largest plastic enterprise, Huaqiang Plastics, has taken the opportunity to revive. Secondly, regarding the direction of industrial adjustment, the current shortage must have been the blind spot of the past. At the beginning of the emergence of energy consumption and environmental protection issues, the earlier companies set their sights and prepare. The more opportunities they have to stand out in the same industry. Conversely, they miss out on opportunities. For example, the rapid development of Shandong's wind power industry is currently facing a shortage of wind power equipment supply, resulting in wind power generation enterprise as being caught off the hook. The business opportunities under the imbalance between supply and demand are obvious. Thirdly,